Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Maya for some of you who don't know me. In today's video I'm going to be talking about my daughter, Emma, her journey with epilepsy so far. She's now almost 8 months old, but her seizures started at 2 months old, almost 3 months old. And they had went on for a couple of days before I realized that something was wrong because I didn't know what they were. I had never seen a seizure in a baby before. I had never seen a seizure, period. They were alarming, but I just didn't think it was that serious. Her pediatrician, I called her pediatrician, and she immediately told us to take her in. Sounds like a seizure. So we ended up taking her to the closest children's hospital to us at the time, and they ended up admitting us. While we were in the hospital admitted and they were running all these tests on her, she had no more seizures. Let's see, the test that we had done, she had a head ultrasound, a routine EEG, which a routine EEG is like, an EEG is brainwave monitoring, pretty much, but a routine means 30 minutes. You can do it for I think up to 72 hours or 96, I'm not 100%, but that's what we got done, and then of course blood work. So everything came back normal because she didn't have a seizure during the EEG, which didn't pick up anything abnormal because of that. And then her head ultrasound, her soft spot was too small for them to really see anything, like any bleeding in the brain that would cause the seizures or anything. So they put us on anti-seizure medication and said that they wanted to set up an outpatient MRI, and then we went home the next day. So the anti-seizure medication worked for a day. So 2 days after we get home from the hospital, she starts having a whole bunch of spasms and then has one really big seizure. So we rush back to the hospital and they admit us again. And the tests that were, I think they admitted us for 2 nights, so 3 days this time. And then the tests that were done this day was a CT scan, a spinal tap to make sure that it wasn't like meningitis because it can cause seizures. And they did an MRI and of course blood work, and she had an IV. The CT scan came back normal. The spinal tap came back normal. She didn't have meningitis or anything. And the MRI also came back normal. They couldn't see anything in her brain. They didn't know why she was having seizures, so we just thought, okay, she was going to grow out of it. Excuse me. Sorry, it's cold outside. I'm not feeling very good. So anyways, so everything came back normal. They kept us an extra night after the MRI because her body didn't really react well to anesthesia. She didn't really, I guess, recover well. It took her a long time. Her whole body was a little bit more swollen than it should have been, which anesthesia is hard on anybody, but as a 2-month-old baby, she just didn't react well. So they wanted to monitor her, and that's why we stayed an extra night. So after leaving, it was just to keep giving her the medicine, and we'll see what happens really until we follow up with her neurologist that we got assigned to while we were in the hospital. So from the middle of July to September, she was seizure free. She didn't have any seizures. The medicine was working for her. She was awesome. She was doing great. So on September 19th, she had a seizure, and coming out of it, she hit her temple on a pointy object, so that landed us back in the ER. They diagnosed her with a minor head injury, slightly less intense than a concussion. She hit her head pretty hard. We didn't stay in the hospital. We were able to come home. They gave her some medicine, and we were given instructions to, care for her to make sure that she was okay and nothing worse happened and all that stuff. So 1 week later, after that ER trip, we had a follow-up appointment with her neurologist, and she recommended genetic testing be done because we didn't know why she was having seizures. So we got the genetic test, we did it, we sent it back in. We had to wait 4 weeks for the results. So during that time, we were admitted again for reasons that weren't for her seizures. For 5 days in the beginning of October, she wasn't eating. She just completely stopped eating. She didn't even latch onto her bottle. She wasn't acting like she was hungry. She didn't want anything to do with baby food, with formula, nothing. And she was just so tired, and this went on for about a week. And her normal intake is about, I'd say 6 ounces, 4 to 6 ounces every 6 hours, and then baby food every once in a while, because she wasn't that old to eat baby food all the time yet. She still relies on formula. And it got so bad to where she was only eating 3 to 4 ounces of formula per day for about 3 days in a row. So we get to the hospital, and they can't find any viral illness that would be causing her to not want to eat, or ear infection or anything. They can't find any reason why she doesn't want to eat. And this is the same children's hospital that we have been admitted to twice before. So they already know her seizure history. They were making sure that because of this she didn't have any seizures. So she still didn't eat. We were in the ER for 6 hours, I think it was. And she still didn't want to eat. She didn't want to eat for the doctors, the nurses, me, nobody. So they decided to give her an NG tube, which for some of you who don't know what that is, it's like a little feeding tube that goes in your nose, down your throat, into your tummy, so that she could still be getting nutrients that she needed and stay hydrated, because they didn't want to give her an IV, or I didn't want to give her an IV. So they did a head ultrasound again. The reasoning wasn't very clear to me why they did that, but they wanted to make sure that it wasn't seizure related, I guess, or something didn't change in her brain, but they couldn't see anything because her soft spot was smaller than it was when they couldn't see anything before. So then she had a swallow study done, and because of that, when she started tolerating some food, she would throw it all up. She wouldn't keep it down. The only way she would tolerate it was through her NG tube. So she had a swallow study done to make sure it wasn't really bad reflux or something, they wanted to make sure something wasn't seriously wrong with whatever was going on. She had lots of blood work, and then they started giving her Pedialyte and formula through the NG tube. And she would kind of go back and forth with it. It wasn't she could tolerate it with the NG tube, and then we tried to give her a bottle and it was done. Or we'd give her an ounce or two in a bottle and she'd keep it down and then throw up what was put in her tummy by the NG tube. It was really wishy-washy, but overall the NG tube is the only way that she would keep any food down for 5 days. They still don't know why, but her dad, my husband Jake, he was deployed throughout this whole thing, and then they got to send him home because she was in the hospital in October. And the day after he got to the hospital, she started tolerating all of her feeds. She started eating more. She was just so happy. So I think it's because she just needed her daddy. Something wasn't right and she just needed her daddy. So she's okay from that now. So right after we get out of the hospital, just a couple days after, we get a call from her neurologist with the genetic testing results. So the genetic test showed that she had 3 genes in her body. And her neurologist diagnosed her with these 3 forms of epilepsy. So the first one is autosomal, and I'm sorry if I'm saying this wrong, it still is a tongue twister to me. Autosomal dominant nocturnal frontal lobe epilepsy, which for that one she definitely said that she is pretty sure she missed something in the MRI with looking at the genetic testing results. The second one is it's Ohtahara syndrome or early infantile epileptic, work with me, encephalopathy. You can Google it, I don't know. That one, she said that she could possibly grow out of, but the first one that I said, there's no growing out of it because that one is embedded in her brain. And then the third one is autosomal dominant childhood onset epilepsy, which is pretty much like the first one that I named, but the first one only gives her seizures in her sleep, and the second one gives her seizures during the day. So yeah, so then we move out of state, and we have to find a new neurologist. So after her first appointment, with her new neurologist, he confirmed, because we didn't know what kind of seizures she was having, because we could never catch them in the hospital. So right after we leave her first appointment with her neurologist, we are kind of not in the best mood because he confirmed that the seizures that she was having were grand mal seizures or generalized tonic-clonic seizures. And then she has absent seizures and focal seizures and tremors. So what grand mal seizure is or generalized tonic-clonic is the shaking seizure, the convulsions. That specific seizure type is it's life-threatening. You can lose consciousness. Some people bounce back, some people don't. It's a scary thing. The absent seizures and the focal seizures, they're not the same, but they're similar. It's kind of where she just stares off into space, and you can't get her attention. Like, it's like she's shut off for a couple seconds and then she's back to normal. And then tremors, what she does is, it's pretty much, they only last a couple seconds. They're not life-threatening, neither are focal or absent seizures, only grand mals. She puts her arm up and she just kind of like shakes for a second and then she'll bring it back down, and that's a tremor. And it happens a few times a day. If it happens a few times a day, they just happen randomly. So right after that, after, hearing about her types of seizures that she has, and the severity and all that stuff, I was going to pick up her new prescription right after the neurology appointment. And I have like a mirror in the back seat on the headrest by her car seat so I can see her in my rearview mirror. And I looked back and she looks really odd. Like, she's not being herself. She's not really moving. Her eyes are flickering in the back of her head. So I start to really like pay attention to her and watch her. And it's scary. So I thought after a couple minutes, she'll go back to normal. She'll go back to normal. It's just a small little absence or focal seizure. And then it started getting really bad. It started to be it turned into, I guess you could say, from what I could see, was a grand mal seizure. And normally, if it lasts for more than 5 minutes, you need to get medical help because it could turn into something serious. This lasted for 15 minutes, close to 15 minutes. So then I got very scared. I was driving, I was by myself. I called my husband. I was just immediately took off to the hospital. I was very close to the hospital, which was a good thing about this whole situation. So I called my husband. He's at work. He's in the military, so he works crazy hours. And I was like, look, I'm going to the hospital. Meet me there. This is what's happening. Like, you need to come. So I get to the hospital and I explain to them, and she's still, like, she's out of the seizure, but she's still not being herself. She's acting very odd. She didn't recover lightly, I guess you could say. So then I'm talking to the receptionist at the ER, and I'm like, look, she just had a serious seizure for 15 minutes. We need to be seen right now. She's not acting okay. I'm lucky she's still conscious at this point. So they were like, okay, yeah, they acted like they understood. I waited for 2 hours to see a doctor. So whenever they called us back to see the doctor, before the doctor even looked at her, checked her out, anything, she goes, well, because she has a history of seizures, we can't do anything for your child. So of course that made me mad, and I looked at my husband. I was like, you better say something before I do, because this isn't right. This is a hospital. I was told by her neurologist that if this happens, take her into the ER, because it could turn into something serious. And she's only a baby. I mean, it's serious for everybody, but it's really scary when you're a first-time mom, your baby's 6 months, you're by yourself, you're driving, and this has never happened before. Like, it's a scary thing. So I got upset. So I called her neurologist. Of course, I was livid. And he told me about this children's hospital that was about an hour and a half away from our house. And he said that if this happens again, because at that point she was okay. Like, she had been given enough time to recover. So he was like, if this happens again, like, you need to immediately go or you need to call 911. I was like, okay, that's what I'll do. So the very next day, that night went great. The very next day, I was driving again, and she had 4 of the same seizures in the car within a 20-minute period. So each one were about 5 minutes, and she didn't have a recovery in between them, which is a very serious thing as well. So called my husband, hopped in the car, went right to that hospital. They kept us for a few hours, ran some tests on her. They made sure that she was stabilizing well. They just made sure that she wasn't in any danger to go home. So that went okay. I have my little notes. Everything's written down. There's so much to remember. So after that, like a week or two after that, her neurologist made an appointment for us to get a 48-hour EEG. So we got the 48-hour EEG done, and she didn't have a seizure during the whole 48 hours, so everything came back normal. And so after that, he started becoming really, really concerned because he wanted doctor terms. I couldn't repeat it, But, so he started becoming really concerned. And because of her first experience with anesthesia, with the first MRI she had, he was very, very skeptical to put her under again for another MRI, but he said the test had to be done. So he's sending us to another hospital about an hour and a half away from us to get an MRI done with sedation. She has to be sedated because he said that he'd rather, with her past with anesthesia, he'd rather have a big team there to care for her if anything is gonna go wrong. It's gonna go wrong in the right hands, I guess you could say. So she's gonna be in good hands. That is the day after Christmas, so she's getting that done the 26th. They're gonna keep her for as long as it takes after she wakes up from the anesthesia to make sure that she's either good to go home or she needs to stay the night, something's not right, or whatever the case may be. I'm hoping it goes great. I have confidence it's gonna go great, but anything can happen with a baby being under anesthesia for 2 to 3 hours. So we're hoping for the best. So that will be on Christmas, and for all we know right now, Emma's been seizure-free. I don't know the exact date her last seizure was, but I'm pretty sure we're close to 2 weeks. We're either at 2 weeks or we're close to 2 weeks, with her being grand mal seizure-free. So that's so exciting, and she turns 8 months on the 18th of this month. She's growing so fast. And in my next video, hopefully I'll be able to have her with me so that you guys can see her, but she was just not in a happy mood. She was just screaming and everything. But if you guys have any questions for me, go ahead and comment down below. Ask any questions that you have. I'm pretty much an open book. Just try to make them family friendly. And subscribe, of course, subscribe. Try to, I'm gonna try to post a couple times a week. I'm gonna try maybe vlogging and capturing, you know, everything that goes on. I will not be posting any of Emma's seizures. That's really personal between, you know, me and her dad and her. But everything else, pretty much an open book. So, yeah. Thanks for watching.